Hello and welcome to another CT Tech Gaming video. This is a quick tutorial for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I had a request in the previous video to do a flight planning video, so here it is now. I'm going to show you two different ways of doing it. You can either do the first way, which is the way I normally do my flight planning, which is using Simbrief. Web address will be in the description. Or you can do it direct through the world map. And obviously anything you do here, you can also put into the MacDo or FMC or G1000. So what I'm going to do is just quickly show you how I set it up and get the details of the plan that I want, and then get it translated across into the flight sim. So first off, we'll do the Simbrief. If you want to skip just to the world map version, then if you look in the description, I'll have timestamps in there which will tell you where to go to get to the different sections. Okay. Right, now it won't give you the full FMC programming side, because that one, I want to do a full one for that. So that'll be a separate video, because I think it'll be quite a long video just to go through it all. So that one I will upload shortly after as well, okay? Right, so we're in Simbrief. This is essentially what you get seen with. It is a free website to sign up to. And the beauty of this is if you do happen to have a Navigraph account, and you get the latest AirAC data, you can select whichever one you want. Now, I believe that it's 2006, which is the Microsoft Flight Sim default. It's either 2006 or 2007, but when you have a look on the the FMC or the MacDo, you will see the date ranges on there. So you just choose the one which is relevant to that. For me, I'm part of the Navigraph beta, so I've got the updated AirAC, so I'm going to keep it at 2010. Now, what you want to do here is at the top, it gives you your flight info. So this is where you're going to put in your airline details, where you're going from and where you're going to. So we're going to pretend we're British Airways, so BAW, and flight number, let's go 2020, why not? We're going to fly from EGPH, which is Edinburgh Airport, and we are going to go to EHAM, which is Amsterdam's airport, just for the sake of doing for this particular one. But obviously you put in wherever you want to fly from and wherever you want to fly to. It will automatically pick up a alternative airport for you, and the date is just, are you flying today or in the future? That normally, if you're using something like VATSIM, you want to put that in relatively accurately, and it gives you your Zulu time in the top here. But and that's telling you when you plan on departing. It normally always puts about 15-20 minutes or so, give or take, but you can change it. I think 15-20 minutes, half hour or so on there, but you can change it in here to whatever you want. Next, you want to choose what your aircraft type is, because then that will help it decide what fuel loads, passenger loads and stuff like that to put on. In this case, I'm going to do the A320, so we'll go into there. And then the rest of it, I can pretty much leave as it is for the most part. Now, you can change your units from kilograms to pounds, depending on what you've got it set within the simulator as well. That way, at least then all the actual amounts will kind of correlate correctly. And you can leave the profile and everything like that. If you want to change your registration, which is the tail number as it were, you can put that in. So let's say I usually use N1948. So I can put that in there as well. You don't have to, I just do it as general. And it gives you what your ATC call sign is going to be as well. Okay, so in here, if you've listened to the ATIS and you know what runway that you've got to depart from, then or if you know anyway, you can select that in here. Let's say I want to depart from 24. So I can click 24, and then it will ask you to automatically select the SIDS and stars for these runways. You click yes, and it will automatically plan your route to go out. So this is the main route, but if you go down to the map here, you can see in the map the actual route it's taken. And what it's done is it has done the SIDS and stars to get me to TLA 60, which is, where are we? TLA 30. So you got TLA there. So there's TLA there, and then it's picked out the route to get me to there. Now, I haven't done an arrival route, which is why when you get down to here, it's just a straight in. That's because normally I wouldn't be selecting that until I hear from the ATIS or from the ATC on the arrival. And then from there, I will then put the information in on the actual Mac do, and it'll automatically set up the flight plan or the approach route for me. Now it'll tell you here that it is valid to 2010. Obviously, if I change this, say 2006, I can then analyze the route, and it's telling me it's okay for that route as well. So you can kind of make sure that it will work, and then you've got multiple different versions you can choose here for suggested other routes. But I'm quite happy with that route. It's not the most eloquent in regards to that. In fact, let's have a look and see what we've got. If I went that way. So most of them are going out that way. That's just because of them. I'm going out of 24. If I was going out the other side, it would be a better look. So, but anyway, gives you an idea. This is what the route plan looks like. Now, if you want to, you can also change how many passengers you've got. These numbers the maximum will change depending on what airframe you choose. If you leave it as auto, it'll just recommend a few. Then what you can do, if you leave it auto, if you use something like, say, self-loading cargo app, where you have like the full passenger things, you can then input that information when you set up your flight plan there, and then it will then mimic exactly what you've got in here as well. And then your cargo and everything like that you can do as well. So there you go. That gives you essentially your main flight plan setup. Now what you can do then is go to the top and you see generate OFP. If you click on that, it'll tell you that it's going to overwrite whatever you previously done on the website. That's fine because you're only going to be doing one at a time. So you click yes, and then it will build the package for you. And in here, you will then see that it gives you a quick overview, which has your airline, your flight number, aircraft, call sign, where you're coming from, where you're going to. Alternative, it's telling me I'm flying at 35,000 today. And then it's got all the information here, block fuel weight, zero fuel weight, and takeoff weight. You can see it's got your main routing there, and it's telling me that my payload and cargo is limited by my MZFW. So any kind of remarks it will give you there, but that's not a major one to worry about, so we're okay there. And then there you go, gives you route. Now if you go a bit further down, it gives you the paperwork preview, which is a simulation of the kind of paperwork they would have on an airline when they're actually setting it all up. Obviously, might not be 100% accurate, but it's just an approximation. And again, you have all the same information here, but if not a little bit more. Tells you what your flight level is here by FL steps. What your cost index is something that you'll need to put in the FMC or flight management system. And then it gives you all of your information here for it. If you go down, it tells you what block fuel you need to put in. And it's telling you roughly, if we keep going down, it's telling me I've got 180 passengers and 18.7 kilos in weight on payload. We haven't got any specific cargo, so it is basically payload will be like luggage. I would say probably, I don't know whether it would include, but realistically that would also include things like the meals and stuff like that they bring on as well. Okay, so once you've done all that, if you want, you can explore this a little bit more. It gives you literally every single waypoint that you would go afterwards as well. So you can see all that there as well. Once you've done that and you're happy, if you go down, you'll see when it says FS 2020, click download, and it's now downloading your flight plan for you. Okay, so from there, what you need to do is open up your downloads folder and also your folder within Flight Sim to put in the actual plan itself. Now, I'll show you how to find that shortly, but I'm going to quickly just open them up now, and then you can see as an example of mine. Okay, so here's my loadout here. So I've got the downloads on this side, and on this side I've got my main folder. Now you can see it's in users, app data, local packages, and then Microsoft Flight Simulator, whatever that's there. Now to get to your app data, you do need to show your hidden files. So if you go into view, you'll see hidden items here. So you want to make sure that's ticked so you can see it. Okay. Now your community folder, which is what is for your add-ons and stuff, is in local cache. But this is where it differs for your flight plan, because your flight plan is in local state. So if you go in there, you can see these are the flight plans I've already inputted previously. And then these are the temporary ones which it puts in whenever you set something up within Flight Simulator itself. All I have to do is copy my flight plan from the from the downloads folder into there. It's asking to replace because I've got one that I did earlier. So I'll click yes, and then there you go. That's now replaced the information on there. So after you've done that, that is essentially now your flight plan is there ready to load in Flight Sim. Now what I'm going to do is quickly load it up and then show you guys how to physically load it into the sim and then how it'll look when you start your plane up. Okay, so we are in the main menu for the simulator. Now if you click on the world map, you'll see here obviously your standard world map here. What you want to do is just quickly choose the plane you want to use. In this case I've chosen the Airbus A320. And then what you do is at the bottom you'll see a section which says load-save. If you click on that, you'll get this little message here, but that's fine, you can just click load. Now this will tell you where your local state folder is, and also you can then find your community folder. So if you're not 100% sure and you don't want to open the development options, you can do it just by clicking on this and it will physically show you where the main folder is here, and then you go into that one for your community, and then this one is for your flight plans. And as you can see, we've got the EGPH there and EHAM set right there. So I'm going to click on open. Now it'll take a couple of minutes and then all of a sudden, or a couple of seconds, and there you go. It is now all put in and it's got your down to your first main waypoint. This is your departure section to the waypoint, and then it's picking up where it's saying your descent should be, but obviously that will change as you get closer. So as you can see, it's added in every single SID and start that was in the actual flight plan. You will notice that some of these ones here, it's actually put the waypoints in, but for some reason Microsoft Flight Simulator still doesn't have all of the data, regardless of whether you've upgraded the Navigraph or not. There's certain SIDs or stars and that it doesn't physically pick up, but for the most part you can see it's picked up the rest there. You've got the list of it across the top. And the one thing you do want to check is if you click on the nav log, you want to make sure that your cruise area is what it said in Simbrief, which was 35,000. Okay, and then it has all your information here, including altitude, speed, and everything like that. That is going to be set to do. You can change that if you want, or you can keep it as it is. Now, for me, I am going to set myself to go into the gate small because obviously you want to. This is for starting up from scratch. But then when you've done this, I'm going to load into the sim now, and then you can see that all the information will automatically be in the MacDo, FMC, or whichever plane you're using. It will automatically upload it for you. So if I go in and we click fly, it'll take a few minutes while it loads in, but this essentially will now have your flight plan all set up and ready for takeoff essentially, or start up. Okay, so here we are, we're now in the flight sim. You can see we're at Edinburgh now. If I click ready to fly, give it a couple of minutes just to do its little frame drops that you normally get in the sim when you first start. I always move it around a little bit here just so I can see them. And there we go. So from here, what you can do is if I click onto external power straight away just to get the power up, let's turn the displays up. And I'm not going to go straight into the flight. This is just to show it's worked, but just for the sake of my sanity, I'm just turning them up, and I'm gonna flick those across. Okay, so if we go down to the FMC, you'll see it gives you your active data here, so you know what you're working with. And then if you go into the flight plan, you can now see all of the plan has now been inputted directly. The only bit that isn't in there is your destination arrival, because that will depend on which runway you're going. So what you do is then go through here, choose which one you were going to use, let's say ILS right, and then if you need to approach via a specific area you can do. For this I'm not going to worry about that, and I can just insert, and then it will automatically set me up for an approach to 18 right. Now to check that, if you want to check to make sure it has worked, although the IRS hasn't actually aligned yet, you can flick that to plan. And what you can see here, if I go across, let's go back to the top. There you go. So we're at Edinburgh. You can see that on the screen here, you got Edinburgh. Now if I move up each one, you'll see it starts moving across to each waypoint, and it actually does have, although it doesn't show it on the world map, it does show the waypoint names physically on your display. And you can see it's literally set all of them up all the way to the approach airport. And because I've chosen a runway, normally that line would go straight to the airport, but because I've chosen a runway, it's now chosen as an approach for me as well. So you can see there, it's literally gone through the full approach, and it's all in there now, and it's ready to essentially get this bird powered up and in the air and fly. And what will happen is it will automatically, the autopilot will now automatically go with what's in there. The only things that it won't have set up is if you go into your perf page, you'll still need to do the information in here, and you still need to put your cost index in. If I quickly go to Simbrief, go up to the top of this one here, see my cost index is 36, so I'm putting 36 in there, just so you know, it is just there. So I'll put it in there, 36. I also hadn't put in my alternative airport, so that was EBBR, I believe. So I can throw that in there as well. So just in case it's an emergency, chances are most of you are never actually going to go to the alternative, but for realism and in case of an emergency, you can put it in there. Okay. Now the other thing to take into account is once you've done that, obviously your perf, you want to put what flaps you're doing. So we're going to be doing flaps 1 and then 0.1 up. Normally you would have someone that would calculate this, but I'm just going to estimate at 0.1 up. I don't think this page is fully active yet because this doesn't seem to change regardless what I put in. It does change when I load up this simulator, but it doesn't necessarily change when I change any data within the actual thing itself. But from there, this is now essentially set up and ready to go. As far as the flight planning side of things is, you'd put in what your altitude, your transition altitude would be, which I believe is 5,000, and then once you've been given clearance from the ATC, you would then up it to where you need to go. Obviously, when you listen to your ATIS, it will actually give you your transition and stuff like that, as long with your QNH and all this lot. But as far as flight planning, that is essentially how you set up a flight plan using Simbrief and get it into the game, so you can have a full flight plan. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back to the main menu now and show you how you can do it actually within the world map. Right, now we're back in the world map, or the main menu even. If we go into the world map, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can choose Edinburgh, set it as your departure, and you can choose the Amsterdam airport, set it as arrival. Now obviously that is going to do just a straight line flight. Now what you can do is in this little box up here underneath the plane, you can choose that to IFR, low or high altitude, and if you select it, it will give you a basic SIDS and star waypoint. I don't know if the low altitude is going to be any different. Not really. So you can see that it does kind of set up a basic SIDS and stars information there for you. It's not perfect, but it will give you a quick flight, like a very basic flight plan there as well. So you can do that from the actual menu as well, and you can do that on any of the planes that have instruments, because IFR is instrument flight as opposed to VFR, which is visual flight. And then from there you can it will essentially set up, and again if you go into your nav log, you can then choose what your cruising altitude is. Let's say I want it to go down to 35,000, put that in, and now it's set it as 35,000 as the main, and you can literally see each of the sections here. Okay, so that is how you can do it. A very quick, if you don't want to use Simbrief, you want to just do it direct in there in the game, you can do it that way. I will also show you how to manually input if you have a separate website which doesn't create a flight plan. If you want to actually do a manual inputted flight plan using the world map as well, you can do that as well. If I can reset, and then let's just say we're doing Edinburgh again, departure, and then go into Amsterdam. Now the one thing you will notice is if I go into here, The easiest way to do it is to use your map if you've got one, or if you've got the data down here. Normally you'll find when you get to flight log, it will have all the information here. So TLA, Haven, IPSAD, Otban and stuff like that. So they're all the ones. You will find some of these won't be in there, which is your when you're doing the first few for the actual departure and approach. But for the main part, once you get to your main one, it should come in. So I think TLA is the first one here, and then that you'll find it will have these waypoints here. So it's generally doesn't have the departure SIDS and stars, and it doesn't have the approach SIDS and stars yet. Now I'm hoping I'll update that, but that's how it stands at the moment. But what you could do, so if I just pick TLA, Haven, IPSAD, for instance, what I can do is do here, and now I'm sure TLA is in there. Is it TLA? Yeah, so we can have a quick look and see if TLA is in there, which it's not. I've just tried TIA just in case I'm being blind. It's not. So that one's not in there, but if I put Haven, you see that one's there. Now I believe the one I want is the second one, which it is. And then you just click add, and as you can see, it's now added that to the next waypoint. If you do have multiple ones, just as an example here, I'm going to reopen this one up, and you do have multiple ones. Now you can click on one and it will take you to where it is. Now if I clicked on that, I'd be like, oh hang on, that's not the right one. So I don't actually have to add it. From there I can go back in, just delete the first letter and put it back in again just to reset it, and then try the next one. And then I'll see this one is close to the route and be right, that must be the one that it should be. It would make sense that that's what it is. The next one we've got is IPSAD. So if I click that in, you see IPSAD shows, and it's actually got it there. So I can add that. And as you can see, what I'm now starting to do is add the waypoints along the route. So what I can do is just go through all of these, clicking them in, click in add, and you'll see it keep adding them at the top up here as well. AGPEN was it? Ooh. AGPED, sorry, PED. Click that one in and then add that. You can kind of see it's adding your flight plan now as you're going along. Nateb is the next one, so then we'll go across, put Nateb. So yeah, so as you can see, I've put in all the waypoints now. The only things I haven't done is the approach and the departure SIDS and stars, because I'll have to set them up within the actual sim, because it doesn't allow you to physically search them in here. If you search them, it won't physically find that route, which was down here. So, and it still doesn't have all of the waypoints, all of the SIDS and all of the stars actually in loaded up in there. So there is ones that you may have to skip and just move to the next one, unless you do it in the flight plan as you saw that I did previously, whether you do that with Simbrief or you have a specific software that you use. But other than that, if you want to do it manually, that's how you can do it, but it will miss a few bits and pieces which aren't in the sim yet. But if you get the information, like I say, Simbrief is a free tool to use, or if you just want it to put in a bog standard one for you, just click IFR up there. And whether you load the flight plan from the actual simulator, or whether you put it in manually using your search bar, those will be your main ways to actually get the flight plan set up within the actual simulator itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the video here for your basic flight plan creation and getting it into the sim. And then the next video, what I'm going to do is the FMC or MacDo, and then how you can physically load it up and do it through the system there. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, hit that like button, feel free to subscribe and get the bell on to notify you of any more tutorials I do, along with any other videos I upload. And I've been CT Tech Gaming. This is with Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I'll catch you in the next one.